This is Eric from IONCINEMA.com speaking with the 2025 Screenwriter Lab folks from Sundance Institute. I have the pleasure of chatting to Alexandra
Qin
for Thirstygirl, this time the feature project, because I did get to speak to you. One of 10 projects selected from a mind-boggling 3,380 submissions. Before we jump into the lab experience, I just wanted to get a sense of what it was like to tour with Thirstygirl, the short. I can imagine that my rapport with the film was, I had a really, really strong connection to the film, but I wanted to get a sense of you as a filmmaker, but also a communicator. How was it to speak with audiences afterwards and have, everybody's got a story, and some people can relate much more to your film than perhaps even you can sometimes.
Yeah.
So how is it to extract that and tour with the short and have that experience?
Yeah, I mean, touring with the Thirstygirl short was really magical. My primary audience for the film, I always say, is people who experience addiction or who have at some point. And obviously the film is for everyone, but if there was one person that this film was for, it's for that person. It's for someone who is going through it right now and needs to feel like they're not alone. And so, at every screening, one or a few people come up to me afterwards and are like, this really resonated with me, or like, I'm in recovery for addiction, or like, I am really struggling with this right now, or, and a lot of young women also come up to me, and that's really cool because that's also who the film is for. And it means a lot to me because that's why I'm making the film. It's, to make a beautiful piece of art, but it's also to help people who were where I was when I was hitting bottom, and I just needed to feel like I wasn't a shitty person and like maybe there was hope,
Yeah.
So it means a lot to show the film and to have people connect to it. And sometimes people don't like it, and that's cool too.
You want to offend people. That's one thing in cinema is you don't want people stuck in the middle.
I think that the Thirstygirl feature, I realized at the lab, I think it's going to be very controversial and divisive, and because I think people are going to really bring their own stuff about sex to the film, and their own stuff about what's good, what's bad, what's addiction, what's healthy. And it was really interesting talking to the advisors. They all shared very personal stories about like why the film worked or didn't work for them, and I realized like, oh wow, like movies about sex, and especially about like, kind of self-destructive sexual behavior, people, they carry a lot of their own stuff around that they don't necessarily have an outlet to share about, and people have their own shame and people have their own judgments, and they're going to bring that to Thirstygirl. And I think I've realized that what matters most is not that the film be bulletproof for everyone, because that's going to be impossible, but I think it's going to need to move people in key moments because of the relationship between the sisters. It's going to have to move people so much that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your belief is, if you agree with me or not about like what sex addiction is, but as long as you feel something really for Charlie in these key moments, I think that's what I'm going for.
Did you feel as if you had to defend the project and defend your vision? Because, we're like, I imagine advisors are carrying onto things that have passed at Sundance for the past 20 years. And if you look back at those films today, they feel so outdated and old. Even Secretary with Maggie Gyllenhaal.
I love that movie.
I love the movie, but it feels so like it feels like a baby version of Baby Girl, like in a way. It feels very safe.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I still think, I haven't seen Secretary in a while, but I still think it might not feel that safe. And that's the thing, is that we all, because of our own experiences with sex, we all have a different perspective and opinion of what is safe and what is dangerous. And so that's the interesting thing about taking the Thirstygirl script through the labs, was that some advisors were really split on their reaction. And some people were like, wow, I really learned things about addiction and sex addiction that I didn't know. And one advisor who has written a lot about sex addiction for their own projects was like, I learned nothing new about sex addiction reading this. That was brutal for me, because that's my that's the one of the core things I want to do with this film, is create a new
Not new
story.
language. Yeah.
Like a new story of
Yeah.
sex addiction that we haven't seen, that I felt I hadn't seen.
Yes.
Like a more compassionate and nuanced portrayal of sex addiction, where the sex addict is an Asian woman, and also where we understand why this person became an addict and how she might begin to heal. And like those were the things that I felt was really missing from all my favorite sex addict movies, was something that helped me really understand why they were this way, and something that also made me like feel like, okay, I'm gonna be okay. Like there's hope for me, you know? And so some of the feedback was brutal and some of the feedback was really encouraging. And I think it's such a gift to go to the Sundance Lab right now. I mean, I'm hoping to shoot this feature later this year. And I've been working on the script for 4 years, and on and off, but especially this last year, I've really been developing it with my producers and rewriting and getting into all these labs and getting a lot of like accolades and feeling like, okay, this project is good and this project is special and people want to see it. So it was a very good kind of reality check and blessing for some of the masters of screenwriting of our time to be like, hey, you can do more.
Yeah.
Like literally someone said to me, you can do better.
Wow.
And that's like brutal to hear, but it's also really beautiful to hear that these advisors who, they just met me, they just know my script, and they just want the best for me and for the film.
Yeah.
They're not trying to just be like, good job.
And do you feel, this is a question I asked all the lab people, is that some people leave the labs feeling as if they have to add, and a lot of people feel as if they need to subtract. Where do you find yourself in that universe?
I felt as though the last day of the lab I was kind of in a freak out spiral, because I was like, oh my God, the rewriting work I've been doing for the past 6 months, has this been all for naught? Did I just make my script worse? But I just had like a really challenging session. I think I need to finesse. I think there are a couple really important subtleties that I know that I'm trying to express that aren't coming across. And it's like it's almost there, but it's not fully coming across. So I guess in that sense, I feel like I need to add, but it's like add two things, and then I need to work on the key emotional beats, like the big heart-to-hearts between certain characters. And in those places, I need to finesse and maybe subtract, because some of the monologues are a little long. So it's both, and it's really just like feels like clarifying and hitting home the emotional beats. Like one of my most meaningful advisor sessions was with Marielle Heller, who did Night Bitch and Secret Diary of a Teenage Girl, and we're talking about this one key scene in my film between the protagonist and this other character who was kind of like a guide to her. And I was saying, like, this is the most important scene to me. And she was like, okay, if this is the most important scene to you, let's read it out loud and let's figure out what's not fully landing. And so for the first time ever, I got to read and hear the scene out loud with someone. And Marielle Heller, she's an actor. So she was amazing. And she was like staring into my eyes, and we were reading this beautiful scene together, like on the verge of tears. And one, it was magical to do that. But also I was like, immediately, as soon as I heard us say these lines of dialogue, I was like, oh, this doesn't work. There's like an emotional jump here. So that was really helpful.
When I reread the logline for this project that you submitted to the lab, it appears that humor finds its way into this, and I don't remember the short as being that. I remember it being dark, but like like an edgy darkness, and so I was curious about knowing that life is shades of gray, not black and white. How does in your film, if you're adding humor components, how does the dark and light coexist? How does that look like tonally? How do the dramatic and comedic potential elements sort of like coexist?
Yeah, so the feature script has definitely evolved to become more of a dramedy.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that my producers and I realized we wanted to balance out the darkness with the lightness. And a dear friend of mine puts it very beautifully, my friend Sam Barron. He said, you want to let the audience know that you're going to reward them for having hope. And so if you have these comedic beats and this lightness from the get-go, the audience knows that they can trust you, that they will not have their heart broken, because that's what the film is for me. It's supposed to be this hopeful story, and it does get really dark, like even darker than the short, obviously. But I think it's this balance that's going to help us really hold the audience. That's the goal, at least.
And I'm going back to the short. I remember there was I feel like color, the way color was used, like the nocturnal sequences intermixed with daylight, and I remember just being drawn, visually drawn to the short. Is that sort of do you want to still have the same visual perimeters in a way, for it to have this play between night and day, between levity and really deep moments of depravity, or heavier moments?
Definitely. I'm really proud of the way the short film looks, and that's something I absolutely want to build on for the feature. I didn't realize...
It felt scrappy too.
It was scrappy. I mean,
But scrappy, a purposeful scrappy, not like film student scrappy. I'm like a scrappiness where you're on edge a little bit. That's how I remembered it.
That's beautiful. I mean, to me, a word that truly encapsulates what I'm going for with the script and with the film is the word raw. And I hope that that's what we've accomplished with the short and with now the feature script. I didn't realize how stylized, even though it's not that stylized, but how stylized the Thirsty Girl short is compared to other shorts, until I watched a shorts program and I realized, oh wow, our use of color is a lot more expressive. Yeah, we are being very intentional in terms of how we express Charlie's emotional state through lighting, through framing, etc. And
Reminded me of Honey Boy, I think.
I was just gonna say Honey Boy. Honey Boy is one of the top 3 visual references for Thirsty Girl, 1000%.
Yeah, I imagine you are working with some people on the project, and I don't think it's been mentioned in the trades or anything like that, but are you at liberty to say who are some of the partners that are on board, maybe people that you're bringing over from the short? Do you have a team in place that you can...
Yes, I have a few folks on the team currently, people I'm really excited about. My producers, Asher Goldstein, who made Short Term 12 and Just Mercy. My producers, Carlos Lopez Estrada and Valerie Bush, who both made Dee Dee together with their company Anti-Gravity Academy. So that's my producing team, and I just feel so lucky because on top of being incredible producers who can make great films that I love, they're also some of the best people I've ever met, especially the best people I've met in the industry. Nice. Carlos is an angel. I mean, so are Asher and Valerie. And so to me, that's the most important part in this very bizarre industry, is I need to be working with people that I 100% trust, to have my back, to have the back of the film, and that I'm proud to be working with.
That are going to defend you and your choices.
Exactly, and I completely trust them. And in terms of other key roles, everything is currently TBD. We haven't finished raising our financing. We haven't set shoot dates yet. So,
but you're reaching out to key people. You're saying, "Hey, I like your work."
We're starting to have conversations, yes,
cool.
And we have a sales agent, 2 a.m. I'm really excited about that. Yeah, but that's it for now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's a pleasure meeting you offline and in real person. Congratulations on, when I saw the blacklist screenplay mention thing, I'm like, oh fuck, okay, this is going places. And then seeing it at the labs, I'm like, oh, this is just, it just, we have so many reference points in Sundance history about short film filmmakers that belong to the family and then are rewarded on a level like this, where they really feel as if they can evolve and grow as artists, and it's fun to see you part of that canon. And it's a huge canon, but it's as a cinephile, as a film nerd fan, it's nice to see that good things are happening for Thirsty Girl, the feature version, and those characters, and Charlie.
Thank you, Eric. I can't believe it. I feel so lucky you know, doing the lab and seeing photos of my favorite filmmakers on the wall, being at the lab, you know, some years ago, it just felt very surreal, and I just very grateful that Sundance keeps taking a chance on me and Thirstygirl, because a lot of other organizations didn't. So yeah, it means a lot.
The no's are just as meaningful as the yeses, I believe.
Yes, totally.
It's Eric from IONCINEMA.com. If you want to support us, subscribe below. For more reviews, interviews, film festival coverage from Sundance, Cannes, Toronto, you want to check out these guys on this side.